Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and Master Certified Life Coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, today we're talking about the new Midlife Doodle-Think Club. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle, where we are all about how to get unstuck, clear, and excited about your next chapter, especially if you're in your 50s and 60s and feeling like life is just way too short to keep waiting. I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, your Master Certified Coach, Midlife Mentor, and Certified Zentangle Teacher, and I am so glad to be here with you again. Now, if this is your first time listening in, I am so happy that you found us. I'm so glad that you're here. The podcast universe unfolded as it should, and it connected us. Perfect timing, I would say, because it's always a great time to think about what being a woman in the middle means to you, and more importantly, what you want it to mean to you. Actually, that's what brought me to create this episode. Now, at 62 myself, I've been thinking hard about what I want this chapter of my life to mean to me. Sometimes I feel like Winnie the Pooh, thinking so hard. Think. You remember that little cartoon? Oh my gosh. And the more I worked on noticing my thoughts, the more I seemed to get messages of confirmation from one place or another, and all points were leading to the same place. It was time for me to amplify creativity in my life and my business. And that's where we are today with some exciting news for you, as I am thrilled to introduce the Midlife Doodle-Think Club and tell you all about it. Now, before we do that, I want to set the stage a bit and start with some context. You may know that I help women stop living like time doesn't matter, because it does. We are a busy group of people, aren't we? Buzzing around with endless to-do lists, focusing on being as productive as possible. If your mind feels full lately, if you're always rushing, even when there's nowhere urgent to be, if slowing down sounds nice in theory but feels almost impossible in real life, then I want you to listen closely. So many midlife women tell me that they feel lost in their to-do lists. They're constantly managing, planning, keeping things moving. Actually, they love planners, and they have several every year. But here's the part that really stands out to me. They don't know how to rest anymore. They sit down with a book and feel restless. They feel guilty taking a break. They feel like they should be doing something productive even when they're exhausted. And underneath all of this is something quieter. I think there's something quieter and more powerful going on. In midlife, time starts to feel different. Not in a dramatic, scary way necessarily, but in a steady, persistent one. You become more aware that time matters, that it's not unlimited, and that you don't want to keep living on autopilot, just doing and thinking without always being intentional about what it is that you actually want, what you might regret. The other thing is that you likely can sense that something's off, and you know that you don't want to keep living this way. That's what today's episode is really about. Not fixing yourself, not becoming more productive, but learning how to slow down enough to notice your life without pressure, without judgment, or without needing to change anything right away. So here's the thing, slowing down like this can be hard in midlife. Most women I work with are incredibly accomplished and highly capable. They've spent decades caring for others, managing responsibilities, and, just pushing through. I bet you know the type. They love being super competent, and they totally are. This might even be you. Slowing down can feel uncomfortable. Sometimes you're so uncomfortable, you can even feel guilty, like you shouldn't be doing it. We tell ourselves to relax, but our minds don't cooperate. We try to rest, and then we can feel edgy, or like I said, even guilty. And sitting quietly with our thoughts can also feel uncomfortable. It can actually feel overwhelming. So I don't think the problem is that you don't want clarity. I think it's that you don't yet have a reliable, doable way to slow down, one that feels good. Instead, you're winging it. while in the autopilot fast lane. And you can't make intentional choices if you never pause long enough to hear yourself think. Now, I have to say, personally, I am quite familiar with feeling this way. I've been called the ever-ready bunny for years. One boyfriend back in the mid-'80s even accused me of using school and overachieving as a way to stay superficial instead of really connecting at a deep level. Pretty deep for a guy in his 20s in the 80s, don't you think? I have to say, he had a point, and this stayed with me as something to reflect on over the decades. Now, this is also where creativity comes in, and I want to clear up a common misunderstanding. Creativity isn't just about making art. Creativity is a fundamental human capacity. It's our ability to imagine, to explore possibilities, and to see things a little differently in any area of life. This idea has come alive for me with the creation of this podcast. Over 8.5 years and over 440 episodes. This one actually is episode 445, all created from thin air. And what I mean is from my experience, my brain, my hobbies, my passions, my relationships, my education, my sense of humor, my age and stage awareness, and my ability to mine stories from the past, just to name a few. But seriously, it's probably the most creative thing I've ever done in my life. In midlife especially, creativity matters because it opens space, not space to solve problems or make decisions necessarily, but space to consider that things could be different. And that kind of creativity doesn't require talent. Instead, it requires presence. You know what I mean, being in the present moment. You may have a Pinterest pin or a sticker on your laptop about this concept, but ask yourself, are you really allowing yourself to go there? So I'm not sure if you know this about me. I mentioned it briefly in the intro, but I've been a certified Zentangle teacher since 2021. And the mindful doodling we use in this practice in the Midlife Doodle-Think Club is guided by the Zentangle method. Now, I first discovered Zentangle about 12 years ago or so, and it was so funny. I didn't think it was that long ago, but I decided I should look at my phone and look at pictures and see when it was exactly. And it was 12 years ago. I was taking an encaustic wax painting class. I was in a studio space that was a collective. And one day, I saw one of the members of the collective doing something that attracted my eye. Well, I was kind of paying attention to her. I was being a little nosy. I couldn't stop watching. She was doodling with a fine-tipped marker, but it looked a bit different. What she was doing looked different than what I had been doing over the years. Very different. I'd never seen it before. And it was just more interesting. So I asked her about it, and she shared that it was called Zentangle. My eyes just lit up. I had been attracted to pen and ink since I discovered calligraphy when I was 12. Discovered is one way to put it. Obsessed is actually more accurate. It actually served me in an important way too, because I discovered it the year my father died in 1976. I had never put this all together until, I was really thinking about how to talk to you about the Doodle-Think Club. The obsession meant that I practiced nonstop and that you could barely ever find me without a calligraphy pen in my hand and ink stained on my fingers. What I didn't appreciate then was that I was also enjoying the benefits of calligraphy, in particular, the value of the repetition, the focus, the relaxation, and the sense of flow. As you can imagine, it was a terrible time in my life. It was traumatic. Father died. I was the oldest of 5 kids. And life was made a little easier with this new passion. Because I couldn't stop doing alphabets. It came with the Speedball book. There was like a little book that came with it. And I was just practicing these alphabets like there was no tomorrow. Now, I had always fantasized about someday owning a bricks and mortar paper store with pens, inks, and all things like that. It was a swoon-worthy dream for me. It really was. And I didn't mean I always fantasized about it, but since calligraphy, once I started to get into that stuff, that kind of practice, then the next stage for me was thinking about having a paper store. And here we are today. I couldn't stop thinking about Zentangle in much of the same way as when I discovered calligraphy all those years ago. And that's when I started to look into becoming certified. I knew it would happen someday, I just didn't know when. Enter COVID, the perfect time. The Zentangle company offered the first online version of their certification, and I was there. Now let me tell you a little bit about what Zentangle is and why it's so great. The Zentangle method is an easy-to-learn, relaxing, and fun way to create beautiful images by drawing structured patterns. That's it. That's the method. You're not trying to draw something realistic. You're not drawing characters or emotions. You're following simple, structured patterns, often inspired by nature, one stroke at a time. And here's why I think that structure matters so much in midlife. When your hands are gently focused on something structured, your mind naturally settles down. You relax and you become present without forcing yourself to formally meditate or clear your thoughts. And this is where noticing begins. Inside this practice, we use mindful doodling as an awareness practice for midlife. And I want to be very clear about what that means. As your pen moves through structured patterns, you're invited to notice things like your thoughts, your feelings, your inner responses. And you do this without analyzing them, without fixing them, without changing anything. And this is what we call present moment functioning. It's the ability to be fully engaged in what's happening right now, instead of being pulled into all kinds of things. You know, what you're making for dinner, what you regret from long ago, what you're worried about, what's in your planner, when are you going to do this, when are you going to do that? Did you feed the dog? Did you feed the fish? Did you feed the bird? These are all things I worry about. Anyway, what I'm getting at is that this isn't coaching, and it's not problem solving. It's not self-improvement in a traditional way. It is simply paying attention. And that skill alone is super powerful. And that's really why I created the Midlife Doodle-Think Club. And I have to say, it's been on my mind since 2021. And that's actually about the same time I registered www.doodlethink.com. I got the domain. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I'd be doing something. And I knew the Doodle-Think name sounded so good, it sounded right, and it was available. The club is a gentle, low-pressure practice space designed specifically for midlife women who want to slow down and notice without needing to perform, to perfect, or produce anything. Right? So really think about that. Here's what's included. Each month we gather for a live guided Midlife Doodle-Think online class, where I lead you step by step through a structured doodling practice inspired by the Zentangle method. You'll also receive weekly mindful doodle prompts, gentle invitations to use doodle, or as we say in the world of Zentangle, to tangle, as you pause, notice, and stay present in everyday life. All of our doodling is structured and pattern-based, so you're never wondering what to draw or how to do it right. You'll be introduced to new patterns regularly, and my guess is that you'll also be inspired by lots of other examples online. And as we get to know each other in the group, people will be posting things and you will be oohing and eyeing. You'll be sharing your own work. You'll be getting new ideas. And it's just such a beautiful way to learn and to be curious. Also, each month will be based on midlife mindfulness and self-awareness themes, often inspired by meaningful quotes or reflections. If you can't attend live, you'll always have access to class replays so you can participate on your own schedule. And there's a calm, supportive, and genuinely fun online community space. And I love this part of it. And, you know, over the last few years, I've been in some amazing spaces too. And it's just such a great way to meet people and to experience this sort of thing together, learning a new skill. A place to share, connect, or simply be around other women who value slowing down like this, who are struggling because it may not be as easy as they thought it might be. And it's all going on in this season in life because we have a lot in common. You are not alone. Being with like-minded women who have similar shared experiences is so valuable. You'll be doodling. You'll be trying new things. And I think you'll also fall in love with this practice. as well as have fun being proud of yourself and the new skills that you're incorporating into your life. But remember, while you'll be learning new skills, this isn't all about producing something. It's about practicing presence. One other thing that's important here, and this distinction matters. In the Midlife Doodle-Think Club, we're practicing noticing. And in the Women in the Middle Academy, my 12-month group coaching program, we work on what you want to do with what you're noticing. You see the difference? They're related, but they're quite different. The Midlife Doodle-Think Club builds the capacity to slow down and pay attention. The Academy is your path to getting unstuck, gaining clarity, and stepping into the life you've always wanted. It's where awareness turns into intentional change through coaching. They serve different purposes, and they're meant to work together. In fact, if you are in the Women in the Middle Academy, the Midlife Doodle-Think Club is included at no extra cost. So if you're listening and thinking, wow, I need to slow down. I need space to think. I want to feel more present in my life. I don't want to keep rushing through my days, running around all over the place with the endless to-do lists. I don't want more time to go by in an autopilot blur. If that's you, the Midlife Doodle-Think Club may be exactly where you start. A core message of this podcast is that midlife is not a rehearsal. This is real. Time is not unlimited. And slowing down isn't quitting. It's choosing consciously. It's choosing consciously. Really think about that. So if you're craving more calm, presence, and space to think, if you're intrigued by the idea of mindful doodling like this as a useful skill in your life, not just like an on-the-side thing that you do when you're doodling because you're stuck on hold forever, then I would love to welcome you into the Midlife Doodle-Think Club. You can learn more and find the current details at www.doodlethink.com, and I'll link it in the show notes as well. I'll leave you with this. In Doodle-Think, we notice. In the Academy, we decide. Thanks so much for being here, and hopefully we'll be doodle thinking together real soon. That's it for this episode. This was a long time coming, and I have to say I am super excited for you to join the fun in the Midlife Doodle-Think Club. Head over to www.doodlethink.com and get all the information there. Again, that's www.doodlethink.com. Now, my focus as your regret-proofing midlife coach is to help you get unstuck and get on with the good stuff. Being the queen of your brain domain is the best way to be. It is time to stop waiting for the right moment and start creating the happiness, excitement, joy, and fulfillment that you crave. For show notes and links, go to www.susierosenstein.com and click on the podcast tab and look for episode 445. And you'll also see a link there for my other show, The Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, which is all about the reality of running your business when you're a midlife gal. It's also on iTunes, Spotify, and all the podcast places. Let's do this, ladies. It's time for you to put yourself first, one thought at a time. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.